でも今じゃそんなこと忘れて何かから逃げるように前のチャラが見過ごしてた景色は億千万億千万突き去りしきさずはグラビティ君がくれた勇気は億千万億千万過ぎ去りし季節はもうドラマティ
That's good. Oh, greetings, friends. Buzzsaw the Righteous here, and sorry, you kind of caught me in the middle of lunch, and I'm having my favorite, a peanut butter sandwich. You know, I absolutely adore anything with peanut butter in it, whether it be a peanut butter sandwich, a peanut butter milkshake, a peanut butter pie. Heck, I can't even begin to tell you how much Reese's I've consumed in my life. It's just one of my many weaknesses. It's just so hard to say no to anything with peanut butter in it. And I'm sure that there are many of you out there who are going through or have been through similar situations in your lifetime. And believe me, the struggle is very real. You know what? Just go ahead and watch the video. I'm going to finish lunch, okay? So, power on, everybody. Bon appetit. Good. Food, glorious food. Who doesn't love a good hearty meal? As humans, we need food to survive and give us energy to go through the day, but most of us often have too much of a good thing, and that leads to gluttony. Obesity and overeating are very common and serious problems in society, and it is something that even I struggle with to this very day. And while these are struggles we shouldn't make lightly of, we can, however, make light of these 10 video game characters who get their certain situations by, well, eating, of course, be it an attack or something extraneous. I'm ranking these 10 based upon how their skill sets involve eating in some way or another, and how prominently it factors into their character. Eating as a form of healing will only count as long as eating and food is a significant part of their character. Otherwise, I'd have to consider anyone and everyone who heals with food, and I just don't have the time and patience for that. Oh, and I figure I'd better put up a spoiler warning, just in case. It's all one big smorgasbord, and we all gotta dig in. When you think big eating and Punch-Out, you instantly think King Hippo, right? Well, even though King Hippo is shown to be a big eater in the Wii version, it only shows in the still images before the fight and not during the fight itself. That also disqualifies Bear Hugger, who is also an apparent big eater, and Soda Popinski definitely does not count. He's a drinker, not an eater. Fortunately, I did find someone who qualifies, and I definitely have him in my corner if he'd only stop talking about chocolate every 10 minutes.
There are many ways to eat a chocolate, but there's only one way to eat a chocolate bar.
Every fighter has a great trainer behind him, showing him the ropes and helping him get to the top. And Doc Lewis is a trainer anyone would want in their corner. Mostly you only see him training Little Mac in the NES and Wii games and giving advice and support from outside the ring. So how would he qualify for this list about big eating? Well, aside from talking about chocolate, a lot, this would be answered in a nice little WiiWare game released in 2009 called Doc Lewis's Punch-Out. While this short game is pretty much an overglorified tutorial in the grand scheme of things, it is very creative as it is shown in the perspective of an actual training regimen between Doc and Little Mac. And as expected, Doc is your sparring partner. The first fight with him is pretty easy, but in the second fight with him as his health deteriorates...
This chocolicious. Come on.
What the? Doesn't that qualify as cheating? Well, then again, this is Punch-Out we're talking about. We got boxers who teleport around the ring, boxers who use flying kicks and headbutts, and boxers who drink healing soda. So, who am I to judge? Yep, just one bite from his coveted chocolate bar gives him back all of his health. And it won't be the first time he does this. However, while you have no choice but to helplessly watch as he chows down to get his health back the first time, Anytime after that, when he brings it out for but a second, if you're quick on the reflexes and throw a punch...
No! Now you done it. You won't like Doc when he's angry. Ah!
Yeah, he gets, hangry and proceeds to fight harder and even use the patented star punch on you. If you're not quick with the dodges and punches, you'll definitely end up on the mat flatter than a chocolate chip pancake. Oh, great. Now he has me talking about chocolate. Ugh. While Doc Lewis is a weak example of a big eater, hence his low spot on the list, he is a good example of how motivating a big appetite can be in a fight.
Ooh, son. You about ready for some chocolate cake?
I swear, just listening to him is enough to put me in a sugar coma. Okay. Real talk here. This next entry is, in a way, like my previous entry, only it can be rather unsettling to watch. However, this entry is not only my inspiration for this list, it's also my inspiration for all of my 7 Deadly Sin themed lists altogether. So how can I not include this character? That being said, though, if you have a weak constitution or are currently battling a stomach flu, you might want to skip this one and the entry after this one for that matter, and go to this timestamp, okay? You have been duly warned. So, now that I've laid it all out, let's get back to Dead Rising 3. I believe I mentioned before that one of the features of the Dead Rising franchise is the psychopaths. Each one showing how absolutely unhinged that the zombie apocalypse makes a person, even the most normal looking and sounding of people, in the quest for survival. And each time you get boss battles that are just off the chain, no pun intended. Dead Rising 3 has most of their psychopaths embodying the 7 deadly sins and showing how they cope in the worst of ways, including capturing girls to become the hero, as I've already talked about with Kenny, killing anyone nearby in a fit of rage, which didn't make my previous list, and stress eating on a ludicrous level.
Get away from my food!
Holy shnikes.
Meet Darlene. When the zombies attacked, she apparently holed up in a restaurant and commandeered the buffet table, helping herself to anything and everything and protecting it with sheer ferocity, which includes her wolfing everything down before someone gets to it. She ate a lot of food, barfed it back up, and went back for more. I'm a big eater myself, and I love all-you-can-eat buffets as much as the next man, but even I have my limits and know when to stop. This lady has serious issues. Excuse me. And if you manage to get to the buffet and help yourself, Lord have mercy on your soul as she attacks you with dirty dishes and zoom over with her rocket scooter and viciously murder you with a giant spork. I cannot believe I just said that. Murder you with a giant spork. Just wow. And the battle officially begins with just one little misunderstanding that underscores just how disturbed this lady really is.
I think you've had plenty already.
Are you calling me?
Oh shit.
Life lesson number 1, never tell a woman she's fat.
Like in the cutscene before this, Darlene will attack you with dirty dishes and utensils, run over you with her rocket scooter, and attack you with her ginormous spork. I'm sorry, that will never stop being funny. And she will also, Oh. And you can slip and fall and take damage, so yes, this counts as an attack. During the battle, Darlene will rush over to the buffet and eat some food to regain health, during which time she is open to attack, so get over there and give her what for. Once she's beaten, she takes her last moments and charges at you one last time, only for her to slip on her own vomit and die. Rather gruesomely. In real life, and this is a scientific fact, anyone who is extremely morbidly obese that lays on their back will have a real hard time breathing. And coupled with the vomit, it goes to show how very detrimental gluttony can be and how it's important to seek help when dealing with obesity and portion control. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. I feel much better now. Glad that's over. So, what's next? Yeah, I figure at some point I'd be talking about a cannibal, and I figure for the interest of this list, the best place to look is Mortal Kombat. Since its explosion in the arcade season in the 90s, the mythology of Mortal Kombat continued to expand well into the new millennium, even though many only see it as just gratuitous blood, guts, and gore, which it kinda is, not gonna lie. But with the introduction of story modes in later games, it has offered an engaging narrative to fans of the series, not to mention an ever-expanding roster of fighters. And while longtime mainstays like Reptile and Baraka are good examples of big eaters in video games, Mileena just does it better, and by better I mean more disturbing.
Your flesh looks tempting.
Yeah, you're not the first to want a piece of me.
I'll have more than one cage.
You wouldn't think of Mileena as a big eater, as her basic moves define her more into the female ninja archetype. But considering she is a clone of Kitana spiced with Tarkatan DNA, you know, the same race as Baraka, she has the same hunger for human flesh as her pureblood counterpart. And those teeth, man! However, she displays it more prominently in, no surprise, her fatalities. Let's lay out the examples, shall we? In Mortal Kombat 2 and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, she literally sucks you in and spits you out, leaving only the bones. Lots and lots of bones. Okay, seriously, Ed Boon, how many femurs and rib cages did you think the human body had? And I believe you already saw this one from Mortal Kombat Deception. I mean, that speaks for itself. Mortal Kombat 9 has her enjoying her meal a little too much. And believe it or not, these fatalities so far are relatively tame compared to Mortal Kombat X. And that justifies her spot on this list. If you're not sick to your stomach by now, you will be.
Mileena wins. Fatality.
Okay, I just lost my lunch a little bit ago. Can we move on to the next number before I lose my breakfast now? Well, I was wondering when I was going to open this can of worms. Pokemon. I don't need to tell you just how much of a juggernaut Pokemon has become. 8 generations, 898 Pokemon. Do I really need to say anything else? With that much Pokemon, there has got to be a big eater in there somewhere. Believe it or not, Snorlax was a major contender for this list, but While he is a great example of a big eater, I feel he is stronger in another category. Don't worry though, Snorlax, your time will come.
Ha ha! Foreshadowing.
Besides, there is a legendary 7th gen Pokemon that does the big eater angle a bit better. Regardless of whatever version of Pokemon Sun and Moon you get, after becoming the champion, you will soon be roped into searching for the fabled Ultra Beasts. Each and every UB, as they are called, are only known at first by given code names, one of which is the code name Glutton.
What's he say? What's that? Hey?
In Sun and Moon, you will find this so-called Glutton in Resolution Cave as a random encounter, but in the Ultra versions of Sun and Moon, when you enter the wormhole to the Ultra Ruin, you'll find it chowing down on some debris in the far-off distance. Run on over there to spoil his meal, and you will fight the Dark Dragon-type Guzzlord. First of all, its mouth is practically the size of its stomach, with wicked claws and tendrils straight out of H.P. Lovecraft, and jaws as sharp as a bear trap. And all that certainly backs up its various Pokédex entries from every version of Sun and Moon, which reveals that it's always hungry, and while Snorlax can eat moldy food... Okay, let's not do this again! Guzzlord can eat whole mountains and buildings, hence the feeding frenzy before the battle. And also it leaves no... droppings?
That is one big pile of shit.
Well, it's safe to say that it's housebroken. I mean, it probably would eat the house first anyway. Well, that's enough of the descriptions, but what about its moveset? While most of its leveled up moves are a hodgepodge of different attacks of varying types, it does have eating style moves like Crunch, Swallow, Stockpile, not to mention Gastro Acid, which eliminates the enemy's ability by basically hitting the enemy with a bad case of acid reflux. And the showstopper move Belch, which speaks for itself and will only work after eating a berry in the previous turn. Oh, and did I mention you have the chance to fight him in Sword and Shield's Crown Tundra DLC? In a Dynamax battle, no less? Man, I'd hate to be the one to be in front of him when he lets one loose. I mean, when he lets a Belch loose, not a other thing. Never mind, next entry! Are there any other games besides Dead Rising and Persona 5 that have bosses modeled after the 7 Deadly Sins? Yes. Yes, there is. Azure Striker Gunvolt. Made by the same developer that created the Mega Man Zero series, this game is all about the titular protagonist Gunvolt and his fights against the corrupt Sumeragi Corporation. Set in a future populated by superpowered humans referred to as adepts, Gunvolt is tasked with assassinating several agents of the Sumeragi and stop their cruel experiments. One such mission leads him to a garden-like level called the Pharma Lab, where he must destroy a certain flower that creates an addictive drug used to exert control over the adepts. Upon trying to exit the level after completing his objective, however, his way out is beset by a horde of man-eaten flies, which come together to form the level boss and number 6 on our list, Stratus. Deservedly known as the gluttonous fly, Stratus was once a normal human before being experimented on by the Sumeragi Corporation. Said experiments have left him with a ravenous hunger that can only be held at bay by the same drug made from the same flower that you just destroyed. And when Stratus takes one whiff of Gunvolt, well, yeah, we all know where this is leading.
Hold this. What is this? Parsley?
For Stratus, this whole battle becomes one big feeding frenzy. His main attacks involve charging at you with open... jaws? Not to mention summoning large bugs as well as transforming into the fly swarm to devour you and take your health away. Thankfully, Gunvolt is one big bug zapper so long as you have enough energy. When he's down to about a third of his health, he unleashes his ultimate attack, the Nemesis Fang, and if you don't interrupt him while he's charging, he can potentially take you out on a one-hit kill. Like Darlene, he is driven by his ever-gnawing hunger, and without the drug to satisfy him, he'll eat just about anything like Guzzlord does, and he'll even go after human flesh like Melina does. And what is sad is how this was never his fault to begin with, and was essentially forced into this life by Sumeragi, which sounds like another heartless corporation we all know and loathe. When gluttony gets out of control, it has the potential to affect your body as well as your life. And while we have the choice to seek help and change our lifestyle, Stratus sadly did not. Okay, I know in my last two videos I kind of wrapped things up with a moral lesson at the #1 spot. This time around I already did that with the previous entry, so now with the last 5, we're going to have a little fun. So, who wants to hear a story?
Once upon a time in the kingdom of Titania, there lived a beautiful princess whose love for her people was almost, but not quite, exceeded by her love for cake. So legendary were her cravings that all the neighboring kingdoms had learned to expect visits from the princess and her guards in search of more.
And so begins the tale of Fat Princess. No, really, the title of the game is called Fat Princess. Whether or not you think the games are politically incorrect or not, it has caused enough of a stir to garner a few fans. Enough so that she actually garnered a sequel and became a selectable character in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. The first game of the series is sort of like a game of capture the flag, only instead of a flag, it's a princess. The crunch here is in order to keep the enemy from retaking the princess, you have to feed her cake. Lots of cake. In doing so, it makes her too heavy for the opposing team to carry her back to their base, and allowing your team to strike back against the enemy. Be wary though, as the opposing team can do this to you as well. While she doesn't have an eating attack like the previous entries on this list, I mean, heck, her appearance in PlayStation All-Stars just has her soldiers do most of the work, her lore is the thing that ranks her higher. Apparently, after eating a strange cake in the forest, the two princesses have gained a lot of weight. And now their dads are tasked with the objective to find a prince that will help them break the curse of the Black Forest cake. I mean, the cake that came from the Black Forest, not an actual Black Forest cake. Just look it up! With their two kingdoms at each other's throats, ultimately the victor is declared and the princess finally marries the charming Prince Albert. Only for them to find out that the cake wasn't actually cursed. It was just really good cake. Gee, maybe that's where Gladys hid the cake she promised this whole time. Thanks for the tease, Gladys! Needless to say, it was still happily ever after for the royal couple, and it provides an interesting moral. Never eat strange cake in the forest. You may get hooked for life. Man, we're 6 segments in, and I'm working up an appetite. So, who wants a pizza? I have the subtlety of a train wreck, can't you tell? It's always the simplest things that generate inspiration. Shigeru Miyamoto got the inspiration of Mario from his landlord. A simple game of rock, paper, scissors inspired Keiji Inafune to make Mega Man. And in 1980, Toru Iwatani got the idea for one of the most iconic video game characters of all time from, of all things, a pizza with a missing slice. Hence, Pac-Man came into the world. Nearly all of Pac-Man's games centered around one thing and one thing alone: eating. Eat all the pellets while avoiding the ghosts, eat the power pellets to eat the ghosts, and also eat some fruit for those bonus points. There's not an arcade or pizza place alive that never had a Pac-Man game. Heck, the pizza place near where I live still has a Ms. Pac-Man game and people still play it, even in 2021. Oh, and speaking of Ms. Pac-Man, the maze isn't the only place where you'd find our favorite yellow muncher. There have also been numerous spin-offs, including puzzle games, and even some adventure games with different styles and gameplay elements. Which brings us to the Pac-Man World Trilogy. The Pac-Man World series takes a virtual leap out of the maze and into the world of 3D platforming, where he goes on adventures to save his friends and family, and tangles with his longtime adversaries, the Ghost Gang, as well as new threats like Irwin and Spooky. And though he gains new moves like the butt bounce and the rev roll, his eating abilities haven't deviated from his past iterations. This is especially true of his inclusion into Smash Brothers, though using bonus fruit as a projectile weapon is a nice touch, and using Super Pac-Man as a final smash is a good homage to one of his overlooked sequels. Despite being a basic big eater, Pac-Man still gobbles his way into the hearts of many gamers today. and remains a timeless and unforgettable classic. Keep on munching, good buddy. There are actually quite a lot of big eaters in the Mario universe. Tubba Blubba from Paper Mario is a major contender, and even Bowser from the Mario and Luigi series has proven to be quite the big eater when he calls for it. Heck, I considered Wario for this list. But all things considered, he has a lot more things going for him, but hey, at least they all got an honorable mention. Besides, it would be really disingenuous not to include that familiar lizard with the long tongue. Since his first appearance in Super Mario World, Yoshi has become a true mainstay in the series, and his first appearance alone shows his mettle as a big eater. He swallows fruit, coins, and even some enemies, and gains abilities when he eats certain Koopa shells, such as spitting fireballs, flying, and causing mini earthquakes. This would be expanded upon a bit with the Yoshi's Island sub-series, which is basically a prequel to the whole Mario franchise. In addition to ground pounding and turning into various vehicles, Yoshi's main ability would be to eat enemies and turn them into eggs that he could shoot like bouncy missiles. And while there are gimmicky games like Woolly World or Crafted World that puts an interesting spin on this ability, games like Yoshi's Story or Yoshi Topsy-Turvy as eating fruit and other things is an integral mechanic. And even then, his subsequent reappearances in the Mario games still has him eating up Koopas and items faster than he can run. Most notably in Super Mario Galaxy 2, Yoshi can eat certain kinds of fruit to gain abilities like shining light in dark areas, floating upwards as a blimp, even gain super fast speed after eating a hot pepper. Now that's bringing in variety. And in Super Mario Sunshine, he can eat various kinds of fruit and gain the ability to... Really? Again? Okay, long story short, Yoshi is a masterful eater and brings a lot of variety to the craft. Sadly though, he can't quite top the next two. Oh, I'm done with all this upchucking, I swear. In a series like Final Fantasy, you are bound to find at least one big eater amongst a massive entourage of warriors. It wouldn't necessarily be an odd mechanic. I mean, you have dragoons that defy gravity, bards that weaponize music, and kitten robots riding Moogles that use dice and slot machines in battle. Every entry in the series always brings a new color to the character class rainbow, and Final Fantasy IX is no exception. Here you play as the protagonist Zidane as he and his group ventures across the world of Gaia to help put an end to war and strife. Upon reaching a place called Q's Marsh, you will come across potential new party member and first runner-up for this list, Quinoa? Oh heck, let's just go with Quina. While I am not sure as to what exactly Quina is, I can however say that she has a great love of food. In fact, food and eating is pretty much all that she ever talks about. In the beginning, she only ever hunts down frogs to eat, but after some prodding from her master Quail, she goes out into the world to learn more about the art of cuisine. And though up to a point she doesn't care much about saving the world, Quina does her best to help Zidane in battle. Aside from her weapon of choice, which is basically a giant fork, what, no SPORK? She also can literally eat enemies in battle provided their HP is low. Once eaten, she assumes their abilities in the form of blue magic that she can use in battle, including powerful attacks like Holy and even Bad Breath, an ability the enemy Malboro is infamous for. This makes Quina an invaluable addition to your team even if her hunger causes trouble for her and her group some of the time. And she becomes a celebrated chef by the end of the game, cooking up and sampling some fine cuisine. Even though eating too much in real life is detrimental, in the world of Gaia, Quina shows that a little feeding frenzy can really make a difference. We've talked about quite a menagerie of big eaters on this list. Eaters that heal, eaters that attack with eating, eaters that use eating as a mechanic, and some iconic eaters as well. I dare say that Quina could have clinched a #1 spot with her ability to learn magic from eating enemies, but Let's face facts. Only one big eater does it better than her, and he is the true king of the big eaters. And I'm sure you Nintendo fanboys foaming at the mouth right now have probably already guessed who it is. It was never really a contest when I devised this list. Heck, it is never a big eater list without including the puffy pink wonder himself, the hero of pop star, Kirby. In the 1990s, when I saw commercials for Kirby's Dream Land and Kirby's Adventure, I was pretty intrigued by the games, despite how utterly bizarre the commercials were, and it's safe to say since then I was hooked. Even though the first game only had you sucking up enemies like a vacuum and spitting them out in the form of stars, Kirby's Adventure was the game that first introduced the famous copy mechanic. Sure, Yoshi gains abilities from Koopa shells and berries, and Quina learned magic from eating enemies, but Kirby is way more utilitarian than that. He can eat certain enemies and gain abilities like a sword, a boomerang cutter, a spear, bombs, a hammer. He can spit fire, ice, water, transform into stone and metal, gain the abilities of a fighter, a ninja, a pro wrestler, and even use magic. And he can even transform into odd vehicles like a wheel and a UFO. And that's just scratching the surface of the vast array of abilities that Kirby can assume. His eating skills seems to get even stronger with each game, with him combining abilities in Kirby 64, assuming super abilities in Return to Dreamland, and Triple Deluxe introduces the Hypernova ability, where Kirby becomes a black hole capable of eating almost everything in sight! Holy underwear of Moses, he's a Swiss Army knife in the shape of a stomach! A Swiss Army stomach! Beat that, Guzzlord! All of this alone is enough to put him high on this list, but his character is what ultimately helps him clinch the #1 spot. He is definitely big on eating like Darlene in Fat Princess, and it shows in at least a couple of his games. In Kirby Superstar, the minigame Gourmet Race has you racing King Dedede, all the while grabbing as much food as your stubby little hands can fit. And in Kirby Squeak Squad, he travels across Popstar and defeats monsters, familiar rivals, mouse thieves, and even the Dark King of the Underworld. All to get a slice of cake back. Yeah, like Doc Lewis, he can be pretty motivated by his hunger when it calls for it. But in the rest of his games, his goals are often to help his friends or save Popstar from various threats, whether it be stopping the antics of King Dedede, stopping the corruptive power of dark matter, and even power-hungry villains like Marx, Magalore, and President Haltman. And despite his love of food, he doesn't let it consume him or get him into trouble like Stratus did. And that is why I like Kirby so much and why I put him so high up. His devotion and care towards his friends outrivals his need to feed, if not equals it. And he uses his eating as a great strength to combat his foes, and very rarely is it shown as a weakness, all to save the day in the long run. For his massive variety, devotion, and honor to the craft of big eating, I crown Kirby as the best big eater in all of video games. A big eater with a big appetite and an even bigger heart. My name is Buzzsaw the Righteous, and after having my fill of such a hearty countdown, I am truly satisfied. I think I might go out for a nice walk, or even a jog if I'm feeling up for it. A feast of amazing food is great to have, but always watch what you eat and how much you eat. After all, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing later on if you let it. Thanks for watching, and until we meet again, look sharp and stay righteous.
Ah, good afternoon, sir, and how are we today?
Better.
Better?
Better get a bucket. I'm gonna throw up.